want to have a discussion about a change I'd like to see in the rulebooks of miniatures gaming. And no, I'm not talking about moving everything to digital. I love my digital rulebooks for ease of use and being able to have them all in one place. But I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about having separate books that do a specific thing. What do I mean by this? Simple, I want my books to be focused. I'm tired of giant tomes that try to cram in too many things and still don't contain all you need. I got to thinking about this while I was writing up the script for my Siege of the Citadel video, and I remembered how Warzone 2nd Edition did the books. The starter set came with 3 books in it: The Rules of War, The Forces of War, and The Chronicles of War. These books focused on the rules, army list/unit stats, and the lore, respectively. And I think this is brilliant. I'd rather have my rulebook that I might need to check from time to time just have the rules in it so I don't need to flip through pages of lore to try and find where the rules actually start. Having all the lore contained to a single book or series of books as a game goes on means that if one wants to read said lore, they don't have to have a 250 plus page book that they, in that moment, aren't interested in a giant chunk of. Battletech has done something similar. The error reports in various source books are usually lore centric with a tiny bit of gameplay stuff in them to recreate battles seen in the books or introduce a new unit or something. The upcoming Battletech Universe book, which I totally intend to buy, is going to be all lore. Yeah, I think the $50 price tag is a tad steep, but that's a discussion for another video. But I love this. It means if I just want to dive into the lore, I can just pick up one book and read it cover to cover and get the lore. The reason I like this idea is that I want my books to feel focused and concise. I'd rather pay $60 for 3 smaller books than the same price for one giant book full of shit that won't be relevant when I'm trying to play the game itself. There are some books out there that take over 100 pages to get to the actual rules of the game, and that just feels so silly to me. And I certainly don't need a book that's over 300 pages where a full third of it is irrelevant to playing the actual game. To give you some ideas of page counts, let's take a look at a couple of books. The Warhammer 40,000 rulebook is 280 pages. That's just lore and rules and a smattering of pages on how to hobby. The Heavy Gear Blitz rulebook is around the same page count, but has all the rules and model stats and army special rules. It's much lighter on the lore, but I'm willing to sacrifice that, although we really do need a lore book for Heavy Gear. Bit of ancillary information for the sake of having everything needed to play in a single book. In Warhammer, conversely, you still need to buy an army book on top of that in order to have all you need to play. The War Master Revolutions rulebook is less than 200 pages and has all the rules for playing, while the army lists are in a separate book. The difference? War Master is entirely free. Well, so is Heavy Gear for that matter. Battletech's Total Warfare is 312 pages, and that's one of the densest games I know. But let's compare that to old Warzone Rules of War. Under 70 pages. Forces of War, just shy of 100 pages. And Chronicles of War is just under 50 pages. All told, you're looking at around 220 or so pages of content, but when you're playing the game, you don't need that 50-page lore book. And when you just want to read the lore, you aren't shackled to an extra 70 pages of book. And I don't mind everything being in one book if it's one of two things: digital, and thus easy to bookmark and hop around, or concise. Look at something like Silver Bayonet. That book is 160 pages. All the rules, unit profiles, fluff, monster profiles, and campaign stuff in a single book under 200 pages. Burrows and Badgers is another example. Less than 130 pages, but has everything needed. Rules, campaign rules, and the campaign has depth. All the unit stats, equipment rules, and costs, and lore to boot. Argatoria is only like 70 pages and has rules, lore, and unit profiles for 4 factions. So why do some companies insist on giant 300-page books that still don't get you the full experience? Well, because they can charge $60+ and people will still buy it, I guess. And there are games where I desperately want more lore. Relic Blade, Mercs, World of Twilight, just to name a few. I'd kill for lore books of these games. So, what's my solution? Well, simple. Take lore out of the rulebooks, put it in its own book, and sell them together as a bundle, or separate if someone only cares about one aspect. Or better yet, publish the lore free online somewhere. I love the idea of having an official book of interesting lore for games I love, but wouldn't it be so nice just have it all somewhere that can then be easily updated when new stuff is added? I get why smaller companies like Oathsworn or Metal King maybe don't want to do something like that. As a writer, I get wanting to be paid for your hard work, and those are small operations. But something like Games Workshop, they could host an entire site of just lore and wouldn't even put a dent in their finances with how much they sell. They've put the core rules for their games up as free PDFs, so why not a lore PDF instead of cramming into the books and making them giant bloated messes? I just think we could all learn a thing or six from Warzone. A snippet or short story here in a rulebook is fine, but I'd rather the rules and lore be kept separate for the sake of ease of use. And if you are going to try and do more than just the rules, go whole hog and put in everything needed to play. If your book is suddenly 500 pages and you need to charge $200 per copy, then maybe you'll learn to cut down on some of the bullshit in either the rules or the armies. I'm not saying you can't put everything in, but you have to be smart about it. Bros and Badgers is a great example of this because while some might say the lore isn't deep enough, it gives you all you really need. Half the fun should be writing your own lore, making your dudes, and following their adventures. You don't need 6 novels worth of lore being dumped on you to enjoy a game, and you certainly don't need a third of a $70 book being dedicated to background that doesn't matter when you're rolling dice. I guess at the end of the day, I want companies and makers to be considerate of our time and spines. Who wants to lug around a 300-page book to their game nights? We're only getting older. Our backs are going to give eventually.